The other hard soap primer that is also very popular is the one for the shaving brush. And now I just want to point out that the cubes are for the standard method shaving system using what we call the standard method shaving process using the cloth. The round, the priming round, can also be used in the cloth very effectively, but it is generally used for the shaving brush for what is called the original RMWS. And if you want to see an outstanding presentation of this, one that is really a classic in its own right, you want to check out Mantic 59's great presentation of the RMWS from almost 8-9 years ago. It's a classic on this subject. He produced several videos on this matter and presented it in the best that's ever been shown. But just to update that somewhat, we've got this priming round and we've got our brush. And what you're going to do is, for the Roberts method of wet shaving, which is the prototype, the original predecessor to the standard cloth technique that was developed many years ago, what you're going to do is you're going to take your shaving round and your brush, and you're simply going to load your brush off the shaving round. So you're using the shaving round as a primer for your brush. And those of you who want to use this technique in modified form for traditional brush shaving, all you have to do is simply load your brush off the priming round, drop some paste cream, if you're using Trumpers or True Fit and Hill or Edwin Jagger, any of those will work fine. Just drop a little plug of paste down inside the breech of your brush, and then you go back and you hit your primer. We call that in method shaving the prime, load, prime sequence. Throw some water on your canopy and put it up. It works beautifully. The primer will stabilize your basic mix. It will inject a certain volume of water into it to make it much wetter than it would be, and it will affect the slip action of the razor in a great and dramatic way, and you will like it very much. In addition to the priming round, there is activator. I'm not going to get into activator in depth today. We're going to do a whole separate video on activator later on. Activator is it's a liquid primer, and it's extremely fast. There are actually 5 different types of activators, but for our purposes today, I'm only going to talk about the basic primer, which is called the number 3 liquid activator. I invented activator 5 or 6 years ago. It's becoming increasingly more popular. It's not a very well-known product because I haven't really done anything with it in terms of video presentations or a lot of analysis in this format. But today I want to just really formally introduce it. You can use activator for both your brush and your cloth. For the cloth, you can just simply inject, as you're building your mix, you can just you'll have your hard soap primer in your cloth, give it 3 or 4 shots of activator, and it will volumize your mix in ways you cannot believe. It will also add that extra priming action to the mix that will then translate into that much more efficient slip effect of the razor. You can also inject activator directly into your brush before you hit your priming round, and you will get the same effect. So in a sense, it is a mix volumizer. However, activator can also be used directly on the face, which is typically not done except by extremely good shavers. It's a very fast shaving media, okay? You really don't want to do that. If you're going to use activator by itself, it's always good to mix it with a little bit of cutting balm in the palm of your hand in equal parts. Maybe finger mix it in the palm of your hand, spread it, and cut it. But you want to first have the slag, as we call it, off of this priming soap up on your face first, okay? Slag is the media, the semi-liquid media that comes off of the priming soap. Any of these, the rounds, it doesn't matter. Slag is what comes actually out of the cloth or out of the brush. As you're activating the soap, slag will emerge. It's typically very wet, very creamy. It's a marvelous media to work with. Finally, I want to cover cutting balm as a primer. Now, for established method shavers, this is no surprise, but for those of you just coming to this subject, this revelation is probably going to be a little confusing. those of you who have come to my store and we've talked about these various products, you know cutting balm, as I've described it in the past, as an intermediate liquid primer, liquid buffer. It's typically added to the mix to stabilize it and create an intermediate buffer between the priming round and the shaving paste. It's that fulcrum of the V2 ratio that allows the primer and the paste to fuse water together. It's in a sense a transport agent that brings water from the sink through the shave cloth, through the cutting balm, and puts it into the paste where it can do the most good. However, once you combine cutting balm with paste, okay, it becomes in effect a type of liquid primer because it is wetter than the paste and it will activate the hydrogenic action of the paste. Just like if you use activator and cutting balm together as a finishing agent at the end of your shave, as you come out of the third form and you want to go ahead and clean up, then in that case, cutting balm becomes a buffer and the activator becomes the primer. All right. Again, it sounds a little complicated, but it's really not. You were talking about liquid versus viscous versus semi-solid media that is all designed to blend together to give you the kind of rolling, what we call in method shaving, the rolling buffer effect that we're looking for. That pretty much covers the subject at this point. We will do several more videos on this showing you the various techniques for pulling slag, combining it with cutting balm. The primer slag, the primer function has numerous roles in method shaving. It is the foundation of method shaving. Those of you who want to become very skilled at this marvelous way of shaving need to really tackle this subject with zeal and try to understand how these different products work. They all work beautifully together. It doesn't mean you have to use all of these. You don't. Activator is still a fairly esoteric product. It's gaining in popularity. Nothing, of course, like the popularity of cutting balm or the hard soap primers. But it is, as shavers become more expert and more skilled at this, they are finding more and more ways to combine cutting balm, activator, and even some soap slag to create a very fast yet stable mix. And I think the main thing to realize here is that we are always working with certain degrees of instability in this process, which is where the power of this system comes from. We don't want inert media. We don't want stuff that sits. We don't want things to appear that are deposited on the skin and sit, because we are going to be cutting with a 1 micron bevel, okay? We're going to be cutting into the skin, against the skin, with a surgical blade. So what we want is we want as much protection as we can deliver, but we don't want it to be inert, because an inert substrate on the skin is an invitation for injury. What we want is we want everything to move along with the steel. As the steel transects the beard buttress, as it depresses against the skin, we want an active, dynamic, water-based media saturating that area to deliver the greatest possible smoothness and efficiency of both razor and blade together, moving across the epidermal glacis, clearing beard efficiently with a minimum of effort, and rolling across the epidermis with absolutely no abrasion and no discomfort whatsoever to deliver a world-class method shave every single time. So that's about it. That wraps it up, and that concludes this presentation on the primer family and method shaving. And our next video will be on using primers in various forms to accentuate your shaving technique, to improve it and make it more efficient and pleasurable. Thank you for joining me.